I want to speak to the difference between being a vice president and a president of a school. What are some of the main differences?
I think so. I was now at FAMU. I was a dean and ultimately an associate vice president. But as a vice president, when I first became a vice president, I think that's when I really started to see the bigger picture of an institution. Start to see the whole school. I think the difference between a vice president and a president is you really get to see the entire thing. You see the institution kind of from. You feel like you're looking down and you see the whole. You see how people view it. You see people inside of it. It's just an interesting view, and ultimately more responsibility. Everything that I do as a president is, essentially the buck stops here. And so whether I know about it, I'll give you an example. If, let's say something bad happens on campus. I'm responsible for that. Whether I knew about it or started it, I'm still responsible. If the football team doesn't win, well, that buck stops here. I don't play, but I'm responsible, along with the other people, the coaches and everybody who are responsible. And so it's a lot of responsibility that is humbling when you start to realize that that this institution here has been here for over 140 years, and it's part of my job to make sure that it's around another 140 years.
Wow. So how does that make you feel, knowing that you have those responsibilities? Does it give any level of anxiety? Is it like stressful? Like, how does that feel?
Yikes. I think it is humbling. It can, especially as it relates to safety and security, it is definitely stressful. You don't want anybody to have to come to school and have something bad happen to them. Right? That hurts personally. It hurts. But it's also exciting. It's exciting. Every year there's a new group of 18, 19, 20-year-olds who show up on campus who are trying to become their best selves. And every year at homecoming, I get to see young people who have graduated and now have gone off and do incredible things, and sometimes bring their families back with little kids. Yeah. And you know that in some small way that you played a part in that. So it's great.
Wow. So what would you say? So you spoke on some of the responsibilities in terms of like, okay, everything falls into your hands, but what does a day look like being the president of VSU?
I would say that this is a simplified version, but my job kind of falls into two different categories.
Okay.
One of them is, I think, the part that people see the most, which is kind of the physical representation of Virginia State, right? The guy that speaks at commencement, the person you see on the field at homecoming, shaking hands and kissing babies, telling stories about VSU, listening to stories about VSU, representing us with donors, with alums, whatever, right? That kind of, I don't want to call it a mascot, right? But the kind of figure, I like the physical representation of VSU, walking, talking VSU. Then the other part of it, which is about half, is really being the CEO. And so, we are an organization, $200 million budget, full-time people, probably 750 full-time people total, full-time and part-time, probably over 1,000 people who work here, over 5,000 students. How do we make the best decisions, which we always have limited resources, to make sure that we can get the things done that we need to get done? And so the other half of my day is part sitting in the office, kind of
being a CEO.
Being a CEO.
Being a boss man. Being a boss man. So do you feel like the skills that you learned here running a school, you can take this and build your own business?
Oh, definitely.
Wow.
Definitely.
That's good. Like, I feel like this is important because these are things you don't even think about. How, like, when you're actually running a school, you're running a business. This is an organization. Wow. I never even, thought about it like that. So you were also the youngest president.
No. That's not. I was, when I started here, I was 46. I'm 54 now.
Wow.
So
you look really
I
good
was
for
a younger. Thank you. Say that again. Say I look younger.
You look really good for 54 President Abdullah.
See, I like that. No, but so I was 46. There were a couple. I think DeJuan Warmack from he's at Claflin now. He was previously at Harris Stowe. He was quite a bit younger than I am.
Okay.
And there was a time in the 20s and 30s when many HBCU presidents were in their 30s. So no, I'm not That one I don't hold.
Okay. Yes, but well, just to speak to, like, you have a very youthful spirit, I would say. Very youthful spirit. And a lot of times presidents are always in suits and always dressed up, right? You're more like, hey, like, I'm with my family, you know, I'm gonna come show up as who I want to be. How does that, do you ever have any backlash for that, or is it like, how does that work?
You know, I think that one of the great challenges of the job is there's nothing that I can do that everyone will like, right? And so what I've chosen to do is to try to be the best version of me that I can be, because I'm good at that. And I'm bad at being someone that's not me. And so, and since everything that I do everything will get ultimately criticized, it'll be easier to walk through the challenges if I'm being myself as opposed to someone else. And what I really enjoy, is I think young people are some of the best mentors ever. And young people will keep you young if you allow them to invest in you.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and as I've said, the CEO part is trying to make very difficult decisions. It's easier to make those decisions if I know the students that I'm making the decisions for. So I try to do my best to get to know them. But yeah, no, I certainly get pushback.
Wow. So what do you say? Like, you just keep being you?
I just keep being me. I think that one of the pieces of advice I got from a mentor was, when you get fired, he said, and ultimately one day you probably will get fired, that it'll be better if you get fired for being you. He said, you're going to be really upset if you get fired because you were trying to be somebody else. And I just always kind of took that, right? You know, that if ultimately I'm not a good fit, which is what it means if you get fired for being you, right? It means you're not a good fit.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I think I can get that, right? But I wouldn't want to try to be someone else and not be successful. That sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah. So, okay, as president, who's your boss? Stop playing. Stop playing. You playing around too much. Like, you want to do something, you want to make the money, you want to build wealth because it look cool, but you're not serious. Because you know what I got. And I got something for you. The Blueprint for Investing, Volume 1, created by me, Aaliyah Duah. It gives you a step-by-step guide on how to get started investing in the stock market. See, if you want to really build wealth, you got to put your money into things that's going to work for you, right? Because the job money cool, but you want to make the money work too, right? So it's going to give you a step-by-step guide, investing tools, the apps to use, everything. And the best part is, I know you don't like to read, so I only made it 28 pages. That's it, right? 28 pages, and you getting yourself some wealth of knowledge. So make sure y'all tune in, get your copy today, and go to financialrevolutionn.com. Let's get it, y'all. Back to the episode.
The Board of Visitors. So at some universities, those are called boards of trustees, but here in Virginia, it's called Board of Visitors. So there are 15 members appointed by the governor who hire, fire, and evaluate me. Yeah.
So what does that look like? Do they like do an evaluation?
Yeah.
Is it so they look at? Is it based off of like things you've done in the school year? Like how does an evaluation work? It's
so you of course, as executive vice president, you had an opportunity to meet them.
Yes.
Wonderful individuals that volunteer on behalf of Virginia State. No, they actually fill out forms and they tell me what they want. We also have a strategic plan for the institution, so they judge me based on the strategic plan. They give me expectations every year, and they ask me in very kind words to meet their expectations. Wow. Sometimes I meet them. Sometimes I meet them and exceed them, and sometimes I don't meet them. And when I don't, they let me know.
What does a bad president look like? Like, how do you evaluate somebody? Because I think a lot of times as people, we just throw out these words. Like, somebody does something that you don't like, and it's like, this is a bad president, or this is a bad CEO, right? Or somebody, and then just because somebody is doing everything that you want them to do, this is a good president, but this is a good CEO. But like you said earlier, you'll never be able to please everyone. So in the same mouth where you may be making someone happy, you're making somebody unhappy. Right. So what does a bad president look like?
Yikes, that is a wonderful question. I've never been asked that question. You've actually stumped me. So I'm going to try to give you the best answer. I think that a good president, I'll start with a good president. Okay. I think cares so much about the mission of the institution, the stated mission and the implied mission of the institution, that they can live that mission. And that, as I mentioned earlier, that I become in some ways a physical embodiment of the institution, that people can see that physical embodiment in you when they see you walk or see you talk. Everyone is not necessarily, charismatic, and everyone's not a good orator. But I think that when you look at good presidents as a fit, because it even has to be a fit.
Yeah.
I might be, and it's not my job to judge that. It's the board's job to judge that. But however good or bad I am here, I could be totally different as a president somewhere else because I might just not be a good fit for that institution.
Yeah.
So I think that's first, right? Is how do you do that? So, and then I think it's critical in these jobs to really over communicate. Mm-hmm. It's not enough to do the work. You have to show people and tell people the work that's being done.
Yeah.
And you saw that as the SGA president, and SGA vice president, that you couldn't just do it. Yeah. You had to come back and tell people, we did it.
Literally, we had weekly, bi-weekly things that we accomplished just because people would think that things are not getting done.
That's right.
Think they'll magically have free laundry and they think they just have free laundry. Like, no, we have to go speak to somebody for you to get that.
That's right.
So I think that's important.
So part of the job is making sure that people know that you are doing what you can to meet their needs. And so I think that then by extension, a bad president is a bad fit. Mm-hmm. Is a bad person at a school. They might be good people, but they're just not a good person for that institution. Or they're not understanding that talking about and letting people know and communicating the work is a major part of the work, right? And I think that's true, honestly, for any job. Communicating your work is important for your job.
So who are some of the people that sit on your team as being a president? Because I know that it can't just be you running the school. So what's the chain of command look like?
The chain of command, we've got... I'm counting. I sit in this room to do the meeting. So I'm looking at the chairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 VPs.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 VPs, counting my chief of staff. Mm-hmm. And they all have portfolios. Probably the biggest one is our provost and vice president for academic affairs, where all the deans and all the faculty kind of report up through the provost. Mm-hmm. But we have the provost, who is also the vice president for academic affairs, vice president for student affairs and enrollment, vice president for institutional advancement, which is fundraising, our vice president for finance, who's the CFO, our vice president for compliance, and our chief of staff. And so they all have their own portfolios. The biggest one, of course, is academics.
So how often do you guys have to meet?
Have to meet. Well, it's my call, but we meet once a week.
Once a week.
We meet every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, right here around this table.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to get into the business of running the school. So what do those meetings look like? Is it like, all right, we set is it like we set a goal for the year and then y'all break it down? Like, how does that look?
Yes. So part of it is big picture, how are we accomplishing the things that we put on our strategic plan? But some of them are smaller. So right now we're filming this in January and the students come back soon. Mm-hmm. And so is everything ready? Do we have any challenges that the team needs to talk about? The VP for Student Affairs, are there activities do you need something, you need help from someone else? And so people kind of communicating, this is what's going on right now. These are the potential great things that are happening. Here's some of the potential challenges. How do we brainstorm? I might need help from my colleagues and from the president. How do we get that help? So that kind of thing. So we just sit around and talk about the school.
Yeah. So when it comes to, let's say a parent has a problem or a student has a problem, right? And they're like, I want to speak to the president.
Yes.
Are you always the best person to speak to?
I am rarely the best person to speak to.
I wanted to clarify that.
Rarely the best person to speak to. Because generally my view of the institution is at 20 or 30,000 feet. And so whatever the issue is, I don't know it right now. Someone else knows it much better than I do. Now I can learn it, and I certainly will, but starting with me is generally a bad idea. Having said that though, I think it's important that I am approachable and I'm not hiding. And so I always tell people you can always email me. But the first thing I do is I either send it to my ombudsman or I send it to the VP and say, can you respond and look into this? If people at the university don't respond well enough and I need to get in it, then I try to get into it. But I'm generally the last person you want to start with is me. Other than I'm going to send it to the person I know who should start it first. So maybe that is good, right? So if you got a problem with financial aid, I'm going to send it directly to the financial aid director and say you need to respond. Now, just because you sent me something doesn't mean you're going to get the answer that you want. Yeah. But I try to make sure that everyone gets an answer.
Wow, okay, cool. I wanted to break that down because people be like, I want to speak to President Abdullah. And it's just like, I promise you, President Abdullah is going to send you to someone else that can help you when you can just go straight to that person.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I say always give them a shot. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, sometimes it doesn't work out, but always give the first person a shot. Is what I
Yes,
say.
yes.